Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, cha, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my friends, my name is Jedley, and you are listening to Reading with Your Kids, coming to you from the vibrant and book-loving neighborhood of Reedville, located in Boston, Massachusetts. This is more than just a podcast. It's a movement. Our mission is to help families grow stronger, grow closer, grow kinder through the magic of reading together. And we are absolutely thrilled to have you with us on that journey. Help us spread the joy by sharing this podcast with the people you love. Tell your kids' teachers, school librarians, and neighbors that they can find us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can tune in to listen on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. We have a truly delightful episode for you today. Let me tell you, our guest, Mason Stokes. He is here to celebrate his YA novel, All the Truth I Can Stand. This is an incredibly powerful book that you will want to read with your teens. Also, Jason Chen returns to the show to celebrate his brand new picture book. It's called Hurricane. Sick Days just got spectacular. In Charlotte and Penelope and the neighborhood stage, two sisters are stuck inside until their animal friends put on the show of the year. Meet a dolphin band leader, a tap-dancing rabbit, and the loudest geese you've ever heard. It's a rhyming, rollicking, read-along adventure your kids will absolutely love. You can find Charlotte and Penelope and the Neighborhood Stage by Teresa Argenbright wherever books are sold. The Daytime Began, beautiful new picture book by Mary Ellen Roberson. Available at maryellenroberson.com.
In the dawn of the world, when colors were born, a gentle voice whispered, let there be more. From mountains to rivers and skies up so blue, the daytime began. Oh, what a beautiful view. With every beat of the heart, in the breeze of the land, nature was singing as life took a stand. Oh, the wonders, the colors, the creatures so bright, in the pages of a story that brings pure delight. With every turn of the leaves, can you feel the cheer? The daytime began, let's celebrate here.
Hey, my friends, I want you to meet Corky the Quirky Cow, the most musical cow you'll ever meet. Corky has a magical gift. She can mimic every animal on the farm. Pigs, ducks, chickens, you name it. Together with her friends, Corky creates a barnyard symphony so enchanting that Farmer Ken starts hosting concerts. Written by Lavelle Carlson, Corky the Quirky Cow is more than just a funny farm tale. It's a powerful tool for speech therapists, teachers, and parents to help build early language, articulation, and phonological skills. Through her fun-filled storybook adventures, Corky the Quirky Clown helps young readers boost their speech and language skills with laughter and learning. And guess what? She's offering a free downloadable book, Eek! I Hear a Squeak. It's perfect for parents, teachers, and speech therapists. You can get yours today at slpstorytellers.com. Join us right now from beautiful Saratoga Springs in the great state of New York. We're here to celebrate a YA title, pretty powerful title. It's called All the Truth I Can Stand. Please welcome to the show, Mason Stokes. Mason, how are you?
I'm great, Jed, and thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Delighted to have you on, and delighted that I had a chance to reflect back and reminisce of my time performing in Saratoga Springs. What a lovely part of the world you were living in.
It's a beautiful town, and we attract lots of artists and musicians, so it's a really great place to be a writer, a musician, anything creative.
Yeah. We're going to definitely dive into All the Truth I Can Stand, but talk please, a little bit about how helpful it is for a creative to be hanging out with other creatives.
Yeah, it just keeps the energy flowing. I always leave a conversation with other writers wanting to get back to my laptop. There's something about talking with other writers or with artists in general that lights you up about the creative process. And so even if I'm having a bad writerly day or I'm out of ideas, there's something about those conversations that makes me want to get right back to it. The inspiration of the work that comes out of other people makes me want to do better work myself. I'm also lucky to be part of an academic community. I teach at Skidmore College here in Saratoga Springs, so I'm really surrounded by, on a daily basis, teachers and writers. And I couldn't imagine a better sort of, swimming pool to swim around in than that as a writer.
That's really great. So, All the Truth I Can Stand. This is a pretty powerful book. Well,
thank you. It's I think it is a powerful book. It's also dealing with difficult subject matter, and I can tell you a little bit about it. It's the story of Ash, who is a young, gay, closeted teen trying to survive life in a small town in Wyoming. He's also grieving the recent loss of his mother. And when he meets Shane, a charismatic star of a local theater production, his world is opened up, transformed, and he and Shane fall quickly into a romance. The good times are not to last, though, because Shane is brutally murdered in what appears to be a hate crime. And Ash and Shane's friend Jenna set out to find out what really happened on that night. And they end up learning things they wish they didn't know. And they have to figure out what to do with that information. You might know it's based on a true story, the tragic murder of Matthew Shepard in October of 1998. Ultimately, the novel is a story of grief and legacy and what it means to turn an imperfect person into a symbol.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That was a really incredibly sad and tragic time that I remember it well. Talk about a brutal, senseless murder of Matthew Shepard. That's it's something that we should never forget, and I'm really happy that you're reminding folks about it through this book and kind of reintroducing the subject with younger readers.
Yeah, because in starting this novel, I couldn't assume that my audience would know anything about Matthew Shepard. It's been over 25 years, and young folks really don't know that story. And so a part of what my goal here was to reintroduce that story to a new generation, to let them know the sort of powerful cultural work that moment did for a lot of people, politically, artistically. But the complicating thing about it is that, subsequent research into Shepard's murder has revealed a more complicated and more unsettling version of the story. At the time, Shepard was this sort of perfectly configured icon of innocent sort of victimhood, a small-statured, sweet, innocent young man who was brutally murdered. All of that is still the case, but actually additional reporting has discovered, for example, that he did in fact know his attackers, had in fact had sexual relations with at least one of them, that Shepard was actually involved in the methamphetamine trade that was circulating widely through Wyoming in the 90s. None of this makes him anything less of a victim. What it makes him, I think, is more human and more complicated. And a part of my goal with this novel is to, I guess, try to restore some of that humanity, some of that human complexity, of that messiness to someone that so many of us had really turned into a kind of angelic martyr, right? And in turning him into that kind of figure, I think we stripped away some real humanity. And so, my characters end up discovering things about the Shepard figure, whose name is Shane in the novel, that really complicate their notion of whether they even knew him to begin with. But all of this becomes, I think, even more of a tragedy for Shepard, for the community. And I really think it's important for young readers to be able to know both the story, but also to know its complexity. I think young kids are ready for difficulty, complexity. They have these things in their life already, right? And I think they know when they're being sort of condescended to. or even lied to. So my goal in the novel was to walk this fine line between exploring this other version of the story while also keeping Shepard centered as an ultimate victim of both a culture and a moment.
Yeah. You know, I think you bring up something really important, something we've kind of touched on here on the podcast. We seem to be living in a time where things are either black or white. And we're not, certainly in the public space, we don't seem to be able to have communications and have discussions about well, it's black, but it's also a little bit of white, and yes, I'm on your team, but I also believe that these guys have something to say too, and I think that's a real tragedy of our time, and I think it's something that we really need to help our kids understand. Even if us old folks can't, we need to have our young people be able to have intelligent, open conversations with each other.
I think that's absolutely right. And I sometimes think that maybe younger folks are better at thinking in nuanced ways than those of us who have been at it for a while are. So I think that young readers are a sort of ideal audience for this, but I do also want to help them think through contradiction, ambivalence, and nuance, that someone can be flawed and still worthy of our sympathy and our love and our respect, that simple answers are too simple, and that life and humanity and people are just complicated. So I do think this novel lands in a moment where we need that kind of thinking, but as you know, it's hard. It is so easy to fall back on easy stories or binary thinking. And I just don't think that serves us well in this moment.
Yeah. Did you experience any pushback from folks in the community who, don't want to tarnish that martyred image of Matthew Shepard?
Yeah, I was certainly waiting to see if that would happen, and it's happened a little bit. I mean, for the most part, the critical response to the novel has been really encouraging and really strong. But, like writers, I obsessively check things like Goodreads to see what readers are saying. I try not to, but I do. Again,
comments.
Yeah, right. The reviews there are good, but, there's one that stayed with me, and it was a negative review. And it was a 2-star review, and it began by saying good things about the novel as a novel, well written, good characters, that kind of thing. But then this reviewer said that he or she felt physically ill while reading it, and thought that what Shepard deserved was to rest in peace, and that my novel wasn't allowing him to do that. And he thought it was in terribly poor taste. And I respect that review. I mean, that's a heartfelt, engaged way of thinking about the novel. I get it. Mm-hmm. There's a part of me that would rather cling to that story from 25 years ago that served us so well. It served us well politically. It led to the enactment of hate crimes legislation that included sexual orientation. It led to movies, TV shows, theater works that actually put a welcoming face on gay America that did enormous political work for gay folks like myself. And so I understand the desire to cling to that story. 25 years ago, I wouldn't have written this novel. But now, 25 years on, I really think we're in a position where we can sort of walk and chew gum at the same time, which is to say, honor Shepard as a lost soul, but also see him in the full sort of complexity of his brokenness. But yeah, there's been a little bit of pushback. I haven't received any pushback from the Shepard family. I haven't been in touch with them. Judy and Dennis Shepard are still active in the cause. They run the Shepard Foundation. And a part of me worries about what Matthew Shepard's mom would make of a novel like this. But I'm struck by a passage in her memoir. She wrote a wrenching, lovely memoir about losing her son. And she said that she and Dennis were really worried that all of the media focus on Shepard was turning him into something like an angel or a martyr. And his mom said what was tragic about this was not the loss of a perfect person. It was the loss of a truly human person. And so even if Dennis and Judy Shepard might not want my novel to be in the world, I do think that I was acting in accordance with that hope that turning Shepard into a kind of angelic martyr doesn't really serve him, history, the queer community, or readers well.
Yeah, yeah. We here at Reading with You Kids are obviously, we love encouraging families to sit down and cuddle up with their kids with a picture book or, co-read a middle grade novel together. But also there's a lot of value with kids, young adults to read with their parents. What kind of conversations do you think a family can have as they're reading or co-reading All the Truth I Can Stand together?
Yeah, I love the focus of your podcast because I just love that emphasis, not simply on kidlit, but on how kidlit works in families between parents and children. And so I really think this novel is really well set up for the kind of co-reading you're talking about. Probably not reading together, but reading in the same house together and then coming back over dinner to have the conversation. Because I think the novel sets up those conversations. I mean, ultimately, I give my characters this dilemma. They've learned things that they would rather not know, and they have to decide whether to tell people. One of those characters is a college journalist, and so she's got access to a newspaper, and she has to decide whether to publish or not. Mm-hmm. And that becomes the dilemma of the novel. And I think one way to make that a conversation between parents and kids is simply to ask, like, what would you do? Mm-hmm. Right? If you were Ash, if you were Jenna, would you tell this story? Would you not tell this story? I had that conversation with a group of high school teachers just the other day because I think it's a very teachable novel, and it led to really interesting places, and it led back to the kind of uncertainty and ambivalence that you were talking about earlier, full of mixed emotions, right? Well, on the one hand, there's some sort of commitment to the truth that we should honor and therefore tell the story. On the other hand, I wouldn't want to hurt Shepard's memory or his parents or do any harm to the cause of queer politics, or give ammunition to folks who might think all hate crimes are invented anyway, right? And so that conversation, I think, is a great teachable moment because it doesn't lead to any place easy, and there are a lot of different answers to it. And I would hope both parents and their teen readers would find that not only a kind of bonding and learning experience, but a kind of experiment in moral philosophy. What does it mean to be a person in the world? What do we owe ourselves, our communities, our politics, our history? Does that change for gay folks, lesbian folks? I think those are rich questions that I could see dominating some really interesting dinner conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that the books can be so powerful, we celebrate the fact that books can be windows, mirrors and sliding glass doors, but especially I think with a book like this, it can open up some conversations that a typical family with a young adult probably wouldn't go near. And certainly wouldn't. I can't imagine trying to sit down with my 17 or 18-year-old and say, hey, we're going to have a serious conversation about these things. Be saying it to his back as he's walking up. But I was going to say, but having a book like this is a great way to hey, let's talk about Ash. Let's talk about these characters.
I do think books do that sort of magic for us. I know that they've been crucial in my own life, my own development. I grew up as a gay kid in South Carolina in the 70s and 80s where I didn't have any access to what might be called sort of role models. I couldn't imagine any way of being in the world as I knew myself to be. It was in books that I began to discover strategies of survival and resistance, ways of imagining a future that otherwise didn't seem available to me. So I do think these are magical vessels of future thinking. And again, they can be bridges into difficult conversations because, even as I've described this novel as sort of a social issues novel, right, about this historical event with these serious ramifications, it's also at heart a sort of coming of age story, a love story. It's really Ash's story, if not more so, at least as much as it is Shane's story. So I think there are inviting pathways into the serious issues, but there's also love and joy and beauty here that I think are also worth our time.
Yeah. One of the things that authors often say to me is that they're surprised at what their character says or did at a certain period of time. And I'm curious if any of the characters in All the Truth I Can Stand surprised you.
Yeah, that's a great question. And yes, the answer to that is yes. I'm not someone who goes into a novel knowing everything about my characters and everything about the story. I discover a lot as I write my way into ideas and to people. And so, for example, I didn't know what the final decision was going to be about whether my characters decide to publish or not publish this story. I'm not going to tell you. I'll leave that for readers to discover. Clearly, I decided to publish the story, but I let my characters help me know why they were deciding what they were doing. And that felt, I don't mean to describe this as a sort of magical muse-like process, but I really did come to know people I didn't know at the outset of writing, and that helped me to know what they would do in any given moment. Yeah. You know, we always put bits of ourselves into our characters, but it's those bits that aren't ourselves that are often the most fun, that end up doing things we couldn't imagine or wouldn't end up doing ourselves.
Yeah. You were saying that you had some second thoughts that, about telling this story. How long were you kind of debating that in your own mind?
Yeah. So, it's one of those things where it wasn't so much a debate that then got resolved. It's a conversation that sort of hovered over me the whole time I was writing. So I had decided clearly I was going to do it, right? Because at some point I made my peace with the fact that Matthew Shepard is a public person through no choice of his own. Mm-hmm. He is public to us. He became a political figure, a cultural figure, an artistic figure, not because he chose it, but because it's what happened. Mm-hmm. And so once I decided that he was a public figure, I gave myself permission. I had to give myself permission to write whatever I was going to write. But I never forgot that there was an issue here, that some people might say, you really shouldn't be doing this. Mm-hmm. And so I let that shape my writing, even as I insisted on doing the writing. But it wasn't like there was a moment where I thought, okay, I'm fine now, I'm good. It was a moment where, yeah, I'm going to write it and we're going to see what happens. And I'm going to try to be sensitive to what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. But there's a character in there called Brian, who's a social worker, and he makes an argument that the kids shouldn't publish at all. And he makes a very strong argument. And I enjoyed writing that speech because I believed it. In some sense, it was easy for me to ventriloquize someone saying, don't do this. Let us have the shepherd we need. Mm-hmm. So, another way of saying this is that I had a quote over my desk as I was writing. It's often attributed to Flannery O'Connor, but I'm not sure that's actually true. It's attributed to lots of different people. But it goes something like this. If you have two antithetical and yet equally credible points of view, then you have a novel. Right? Two antithetical and yet equally credible points of view. That's what I was working with here, because I could make a strong case either way. Mm-hmm. Publish it, don't publish it. Tell the story, don't tell the story. I think both of those are right answers, and that's what gave me the novel.
Yeah. What other issue are you going to be tackling in your next work?
I was just working on my next novel this morning, which is nearing the end of the process. I hope, if I can get it right for my editor. And I am again doing LGBTQIA, but I'm setting it in the controversy over don't say gay, over censorship. And so, the Florida law that has begun to strip LGBTQ content from curriculum, has made it illegal to actually talk about sexual orientation or gender identity in a classroom. So I've created a character, and his mother is an English teacher, and they find themselves at the center of just such a controversy about the censorship of gay material in high school classrooms. And that novel intersects with an historical plot set in the 1950s about a famous author from the town coming of age, and my characters try to figure out what his life was like and how that all connects. And so I'm still interested in what feel to me like really urgent issues of the moment. Mm-hmm. I'm really worried about the erasure of queer lives in our books, in our classrooms, in our conversations. And so I wanted to explore that in a young adult fashion, and that's what I'm working on at the moment.
Cool. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about All the Truth I Can Stand and find out more about you.
Sure. So you can find me at my website, masonstokes.com. You'll also find links there to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. The novel is available across the world through local bookstores, either online or in brick fashion, but also Amazon if you choose to shop there. So it should be readily available. But again, masonstokes.com. You can find more info about me and about the novel.
We've had a really powerful time speaking to the author of All the Truth I Can Stand. Our guest has been Mason Stokes. Hey, Mason, thanks for being on Reading with Your Kids.
And thanks to you, Jed. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life.
Have you outgrown your health insurance plan or just not happy with what you're paying for? The number one reason we all change our health insurance is price. Are you paying too much for your health insurance? Would you like to have better coverage at a better rate or at little or no cost to you? Your life needs are always changing, but have you done anything to improve your health insurance for you and your family? Health insurance laws and coverage are always changing and getting better. It's impossible to do all the research yourself, but now it's all done for you for free. So regardless of your age or medical condition, take a few minutes right now and find out if you can save money or even qualify for zero-cost health insurance in your state. Call now.
Paid for by cheaper health insurance. 800-932-1656. 800-932-1656. 800-932-1656. That's 800-932-1656.
If you are a regular listener of Reading with Your Kids, you know how much I love Clowns Without Borders. ClownsWithoutBorders.org. I would love for you to visit that website and consider becoming a joy maker. Clowns Without Borders sends clowns to disaster areas, refugee camps, anywhere around the world that people really need to smile. Clowns Without Borders, we're there. Right now, my friend Josie May and 3 other amazing artists are entertaining kids who really need a smile in Zimbabwe. We would love for you to help them bring those smiles, make that happiness a reality by going to clownswithoutborders.org and consider becoming a joy maker. Your monthly gift can bring a smile to a kid who really needs it. clownswithoutborders.org. Join us right now from the great state of Vermont. Our guest is returning to Reading with Your Kids to celebrate his brand new picture book. It's called Hurricane. Please welcome back to the show, Jason Chen. Hey, Jason, how are you?
Hey, Jed. Thanks for having me again.
I'm super excited to have you on. I love speaking to you about your books. They're a great combination of information for kids and beautiful artwork.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's what I like to do. I'm an illustrator by trade, and I love science.
So what was it specifically that inspired you to create Hurricane?
Well, the concept or the topic was suggested to me by my editor. I had another project I was hoping to work on, but it kind of fell through. So when I was looking for a new topic to write about, Neil suggested Hurricane, and I said, boy, that's very timely, and I think I'll do a little research and get back to you. And I started doing some research, and I got really into it. Became fascinated by weather and hurricanes, obviously, but also meteorology and how hurricanes are forecast. Really captured my imagination and interest. So it was a great topic to dive into.
Yeah, I bet. Were you able in your research to to come up with a reason why people immediately rush to the grocery store to buy the ingredients for French toast anytime there's talk of pain coming through.
I can't answer that, but this book is set in Cape Hatteras, and I talked to a lot of people there and talked to people all over, really. Anyone that had experience with a hurricane, I'd ask them to tell me about it. And one thing that came up is that people have their hurricane meals. Like if they live in a place where that is hurricane prone, they've been through it together. They have their favorite meals to stock up on.
Yeah. Well, I've experienced hurricanes here in Boston, in Puerto Rico, and in El Salvador. And
I should have called you. That's your stories.
I don't know if my experiences would be good for a kid's book, but it's interesting how different parts of the country, hurricanes hit here in the Northeast, and we're like, okay, we know how to get ready for this, and kind of just take it easy. I was in Florida the first time I experienced a tornado warning, and I flipped out. I was just terrified. In fact, I was in a little cheap motel, and I called the front desk, and I said, what should I do to prepare for the tornado? And they said, pray.
Well, that's not very reassuring, is it?
It wasn't reassuring.
Nothing you can do.
You seem to love to tackle big things, illustrating big things. I think the last time we talked, you had illustrated a book about whales, or in one of our conversations. Yeah. A hurricane is a big kind of living thing on its own.
Yeah, they're the biggest storms on the planet. They're by far the most destructive and most powerful, in large part because of their size. Because, hurricane makes landfall and impacts hundreds of miles of coastline.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How do you balance storytelling with giving accurate information with kids?
Well, in this book, I had the concept when I first talked about it with my editor. The idea was that we would tell the story of someone on land who is preparing for a hurricane. So the book would be kind of have two stories running parallel. The story of the hurricane forming, traveling, intensifying, and whatever it was doing, and people on land preparing for the storm. So that was the narrative structure, or the idea for the narrative structure, right off the bat. And it's kind of built in because storms have a timeline. They have a time when they're born, and they have a certain number of days before they make landfall, and then what they do after. So there was a chronology built in to begin with. Then the next step was to decide, well, are we going to tell the story of the true story of a real historical hurricane, or a fictional hurricane? And I opted for fictional for a variety of reasons. But mainly, or one of which was that it would give me more flexibility in terms of crafting the story. Like, I wouldn't have to adhere to the specifics of what happened with a given storm. I could move things around and have it intensify on page 15 instead of page 19 to allow for a better storytelling, as well as informational organization. So with this book, starting with that structure, the trick was to have the narrative proceed in a engaging way, so that each turn of the page, the reader would, each time they read a page, the reader would want to turn the page again and see what happens next, right? So to do that, but also to present the essential information about hurricane science and preparation, and in this case, forecasting, because I was really interested in that, in an accessible way, in an organized way that would make sense to the reader. So science and narrative, they have equal weight in my mind. They're both essential. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's essential to me that I get both, or do as well as I can with both.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned a couple of times forecasting and how fascinating you found that process. What exactly was it about the forecasting process that so interested you?
One of the main things that interested me was that weather forecasting, or the weather enterprise, is a global effort and requires the coordination of thousands of different people and hundreds of organizations across the sciences and across government to get it right. So you have people programming weather models, you have engineers running weather satellites, you have meteorologists making the forecasts. In the case of hurricanes, pilots and engineers flying into hurricanes, the hurricane hunters, which involves the Air Force, and NOAA. So there are two groups of hurricane hunters. So that collaboration I found fascinating and very hopeful, and that we can work together to do this very important thing to save lives as a community, like, at the state level, at the national level, as an entire globe, because nations work together at this.
Yeah. You're mentioning the hurricane hunters and folks who fly into hurricanes, into the eye of a hurricane. That seems like that would be terrifying for me.
It does, doesn't it? And yet they do it over and over again. Every hurricane has a plane in it, or the planes go in and out of every hurricane that might make landfall for 24 hours a day until the storm is over. So they're in and out and in and out 4 times a day, 6 hours in and then out. And those pilots, I think they're heroes. They're so brave and so committed to the science, to gathering the data that the forecasters need and the models need to be accurate. It's just amazing. They say it's like going through a roller coaster in a car wash. Car wash, on a roller coaster. I think that's it.
That's great.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of turbulence, as you might imagine.
Hey, well, Jason, what's the one fact about hurricanes do you think will really surprise young people?
What's the one fact about hurricanes that will surprise young people? Well, one fact that I think that surprises people, that a lot of people maybe don't know, is that hurricanes spawn tornadoes. And a lot of people I speak to get hurricanes and tornadoes confused. But a tornado, like the radius of a tornado, is much, much smaller than a hurricane. And most hurricanes, I believe, or many, I'll say, spawn any number of tornadoes, 5, 10, 15 tornadoes as they approach land. So not only do you have the threat of the hurricane and the storm surge and the rain coming, but tornadoes as well. And but again, hurricanes are much, much larger than tornadoes.
Yeah. So if the hurricane doesn't scare you, the tornadoes.
Yeah. Thankfully, the tornadoes they spawn are tend to be less powerful and short-lived. So, so that is a good thing.
Yeah. Do you remember surviving going through a big hurricane?
I don't. I've experienced two. I'm going to say hurricanes, but I'll explain why it's not quite the case. When I was a kid, I lived in Boston, and a hurricane came and impacted us. We prepared and got food and boarded up the windows, I think, and got ready for it. But it missed us. You know, the worst wind didn't come near Boston, and in fact, it may not have been a hurricane at the time that it passed. But I do remember that, you know, getting ready and the power going out, and you know, there was strong wind. I remember seeing that out the window. Now, that was when I was 6, I believe, or 7. Then fast forward to 2011 in Vermont, Hurricane Irene. First, it impacted the Hatteras and the Atlantic seaboard there, and it traveled up past New York to Vermont. By the time it got to us, it was a tropical storm, or maybe even I think an extratropical cyclone. But regardless, it brought a lot of rain, and it flooded Vermont for hours. The rain just fell and fell and fell. And when rain falls on a mountainous terrain, you get a lot of damage. And I think Vermont, I believe that more than 90% of the roads in Vermont were washed out, had an impasse on them somewhere. So it caused terrible destruction, although it wasn't a hurricane by the time it got to us.
Well, it started as a hurricane, so I think you can count. You know,
Well, it was one of the interesting connections, and one of the reasons that the book was set in Cape Hatteras is because they experienced it there as a hurricane, and it did damage there and caused all sorts of problems for them before it got to us. And petered out on top of Vermont.
I'm wondering, Jason, does the book mention the Waffle House Index at all?
The Waffle House Index? No, I did not write about the Waffle House Index. Tell me about that.
Well, FEMA evidently measures the severity of a hurricane and its effects on whether or not the local Waffle House, or how many Waffle Houses are open. Waffle House is famous for 24/7 service, and if one of them closes, you know, things are bad.
Okay. I was not aware of that one, but I have to admit I didn't do a whole lot of research into FEMA and recovery. The story ends when the hurricane moves on, and it ends with the community just beginning to clean up. You know, there's a lot that goes on after the hurricane, right? There's a lot of hardship and hard work that people do to get their lives back together. And, you know, I don't want to minimize that. I just didn't have enough pages to cover all of that.
You know, my son moved down to Florida a few years back, and we said to him, boy, you know, you got to be prepared for hurricanes. And he said, oh, no, I'm living in Orlando, and they very rarely get hurricanes down there. And wouldn't you know, in his first month, he's calling me up going, there's a hurricane coming. What should I do?
Yeah, I guess that's another thing that I learned doing this book is, you know, that the weather is all connected. This is why it takes a global weather enterprise to forecast it. But just because you live in Vermont doesn't mean that Hurricane Beryl isn't going to dump the remainder of its rain on you and flood your capital, which is what happened after that storm. Or if you live in Orlando, just because you're not getting storm surge flooding doesn't mean you're not going to get tornadoes or rain or and damage from that. So they are big storms with multiple ways of doing damage, and that's just something I've learned firsthand and from doing the research. It's don't underestimate them. Don't underestimate
Yes,
them.
indeed. Hey, Jason, how do you hope Hurricane will inspire kids not just to learn about weather, but to care about each other in their communities?
Well, I hope it will do just that. That's one of the things that I learned doing research for this book about the Hatteras community, or from the Hatteras community, was about how proud they are that they take care of their neighbors. When I interviewed people down there, when I met them, I would say every single person said the most important thing when a hurricane is coming, and then in the aftermath, is that you look out for your neighbors and take care of your community. And they're just so, it's like a mantra. They were so proud of it. They all said that to me. So that's one of the things that I absolutely wanted to get into the book. And I mentioned, the global weather community, weather enterprise, but that goes all the way down to neighbors helping neighbors, and the local community, and volunteer groups, helping recover and get through these terrible events. So I hope that kids are inspired by that, and I hope that they read the book and learn more about hurricanes, because even though they're frightening and can be very dangerous, if you know the science, if you know how everything works, if you know about them, then that takes the fear away, I think. Understanding helps us be less afraid and prepare and do what it takes to stay safe.
Yeah, I'm guessing this would be a really helpful book if there's a hurricane coming your way, to sit down and read it with your kids, to kind of help them, as you said, get that information, get that knowledge, so that they can be prepared or feel prepared and feel safer and not panic.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I hope so. Hurricane season is just starting, and I hope that the book can be that for kids out there that might be facing a hurricane coming their way.
The last time you were on, and I'm not going to try to quote what exactly what you said. You gave me great advice for parents, how they can support their kids who are aspiring artists or really interested in art. As you're drawing a still image of something that has so much motion in it, how do you draw all that motion in a still image?
Well, I guess there are different tricks of the trade, different approaches to that. But one of the kind of the basic concepts that I think about is about making an image that is balanced or not balanced. So a balanced image is going to feel calm, if the horizon is nice and straight and the character is standing straight up and down, that's going to be a much more calm image than if the character is at a slant and the horizon's at a slant, or it's a steep mountainside or something like that. So just compositionally, if you have diagonals, they're more dynamic than horizontal, vertical lines. in this case, or in most cases, I have to really look at the subject matter and study what is it that makes the hurricane, a still image of the hurricane, look like it's moving. Study hurricanes, video that shows them moving. The satellite. There are these great satellite photos of storms that NOAA or NASA puts up, that you can watch them. They take still images every minute and then put them all together, and then you get an animated sequence of images that show how the storm moves and the clouds are forming and swirling. So, studying the subject matter is really important. And I don't know, there are many more. There are many tricks. There are many approaches, I guess, to doing it.
Well, I think just that for a young person starting out, just the idea of the diagonals would be something that would be very helpful for them.
Yeah, I think so. It's something to think about. Look at images that you find exciting and dramatic, and look to see how they make them that way, whether it's diagonals or high contrast, light and dark, or other. Usually a dramatic image is going to have some sort of imbalance in it, I guess, is what I would say. Things at an angle or whatever.
We should balance everything out by telling everybody where they can go to find out more about Hurricane and find out more about you.
Well, they can go to my website, jasonchin.net, and they can go to my publisher's website, holidayhouse.com.
We've had a great time speaking to the author and illustrator of Hurricane, brand new picture book from our guest, Jason Chen. Hey, Jason, thanks for being back on Reading with Your Kids.
Oh, thanks, Jed. It was great.
We want to thank you for listening to today's episode of Reading with Your Kids, where real magic happens every time a child opens a book with someone they love. If you had a good time with us today, please share the episode with your friends and leave a 5-star review. It really helps us reach more magical families like yours. And hey, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a moment of the story. As always, we want to thank our guest, Mason Stokes. Please be sure to check out All the Truth I Can Stand. Also want to thank Jason Chen. Please be sure to check out Hurricane. I want to thank my amazing team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Elle Glassman, Dante Greco. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me, and especially we want to thank you. Hey, keep reading, keep dreaming, and keep making the world a better place, one page at a time. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.
My shoes, took a stroll in the park. Sunshine was shining, but it missed its mark. Thought I'd chase the clouds and have some fun, but the skies opened up, and here comes the run. Water splashing all around my feet. I'm twirling and laughing, it feels so sweet. Umbrella flipped, but I don't really care. With every drop, I'm soaring through the air. I went for a walk and got caught in the rain, but my heart's like a drum, I'm not feeling the pain. Grateful for my life, for every little thing. Rain ain't gonna dampen the joy that I bring. Let's dance in the rain, let the worries wash away. Life's a big party and today is the day. Life's a big party and today is the day. Puddle so big, they're calling my name. Jumping right in, oh what a game. Splashing with friends, we're soaked to the bone. But laughter and smiles, this joy we own. We're singing out loud like no one's around. With the rhythm of the raindrops, let's make this a let's twirl and spin under cloudy skies. With every flicker of light we'll rise. We'll